My prediction for the new meta after the PTS. Full disclosure, this prediction is utilizing a few guesses, which I have circumstantial evidence for. Now, there are a few things that we do know, such as at the moment, with the information we have, Eaglebearer getting plus 50 RPM, being able to roll Detox. It's been shown several times now already. Myself has done it, DJ Tickle has done it. Eaglebearer is going to be the new meta DPS AR. Provided nothing else gets like some weird and wacky insane buff out of nowhere. So with the information we have right now, they went over like 4 ARs. There's obviously more than 4, but out of the 4 that they did tell us about, with everything else staying the same, Eaglebearer is looking like it's going to be the new best AR. So there's the first one. We don't really know. The second one is they've stated that they're going to be changing a few of the brand sets. Well, by upping certain values. They also stated that they won't be changing the one piece. So my prediction is 2-piece Walker Harris, because they're possibly going to be upping the damage to armor. We don't know this. I'm not saying they are. It's just a prediction. They're going to be upping the damage to armor. If they up it to 8%, Walker and Harris, 2-piece Walker and Harris is going to be ridiculously powerful. Like, ridiculously powerful. Especially on ARs, because we're going to get damage to armor, damage to health, and then damage to targets out of cover. On basically 2-piece Walker Harris and an AR. So it's going to be very, very powerful. Again, no evidence for this, but just where they're saying they're upping brand sets, I really, really cannot see them upping damage to health. Although now I've said that, they probably are. The reason I don't see them upping damage to health is because ARs, they have 21% altogether, so even if they up it to like 15%, so I see them going more for damage to armor and possibly putting it on par with Contractor's gloves, 8%. If they put it to 10%, then they're actually just going to destroy the meta because it's going to become 2-piece Walker and Harris literally everywhere. The next prediction is Glass Cannon. And this is going to upset a lot of people because, oh no, Glass Cannon. It is a meta chess piece. However, due to the current state of players in the game, they mostly refuse to use it, which basically means Glass Cannon is one of the least used chess talents in the game, which I find very surprising. And then because of this, it is on the list to get a rework. As you can see at the top here, Glass Cannon and Perfect Glass Cannon. Obviously Intimidate, Makeshift Repairs, Process Refinery, Improved Materials, Obliterate, Unbreakable and Perfect Unbreakable for PvP only. But they have expressly said they are nerfing nothing, only buffing, which means Glass Cannon's getting a buff. I don't know by how much, but I'm just going to say 5%. So base Glass Cannon is going to go from 25 to 30, and Perfect Glass Cannon is going to go from 30 to 35. I'd be interested to see what they do with the incoming damage. I wouldn't be surprised if they increase that as well, but you never know, they might decrease it. But either way, the meta chest has just got more meta. So, yeah, sorry casuals, you're going to see a lot more Glass Cannon. We are also then going to be assuming that Strikers isn't changing in any way, shape or form. So, what is this wonderful new prediction of the meta actually going to look like? Well, we have 2-piece Walker and Harris with Glass Cannon, and 4-piece Strikers, Eaglebearer with damage to targets out of cover. With everything up and running with Strikers, you have 920 RPM. This is 15 stacks a second. We have 56% crit chance and 120% critical hit damage. This will out DPS basically everything that we know at the moment, and not even by a little bit in the grand scheme of things. If we then compare this to just the old faithful Strikers build, Elmo, Coyotes, Cheska Chest, 58% crit chance, 161 crit damage, and then it goes to 186 with Coyotes buff put in. So just the old faithful Elmo's Strikers. That if we put these into a spreadsheet, which hopefully you can see here, this is just with the minimum of what I have suggested. So 2-piece Walker and Harris giving 8% damage to armor, and then Glass Cannon giving 30% rather than 25%. As you can see, we're doing like 7% more, roughly, on average. 7% more. But if we go with the evidence that they provided, that they're basically just doubling some stats and put 2-piece Walker and Harris to 10%, yeah, we're doing near 9% more. Like, I said earlier that Walker and Harris will destroy the meta, and some of you might be going, yay, like the meta, it's out. No, this is actually a bad thing, because at the moment, the meta is kind of balanced. Depending on the scenario, Heartbreakers, Strikers, Negotiators, and even some high-end builds are basically even depending on where you put them. In certain areas like Incursion, Strikers obviously wins. In certain areas of Legendary, Strikers or Negotiators, they're mostly even, and depending on how you want to play, you could also then argue Heartbreaker. If you're playing open world, high end typically wins, just because lack of stack building. Now, it is literally going to be, no matter the build, no matter the circumstance, Walker and Harris. That's if they do this, admittedly, we don't know if they will, but if they do this, Walker and Harris. Skill build, Walker and Harris. I mean, the only real areas where Walker and Harris won't actively be a thing would be status builds and healer builds. Tank build, 2-piece Walker and Harris, just put blue cores on. Because that increase, if they do increase Walker and Harris, it's going to be so damaging. It's going to be kind of stupid. And now, of course, factoring in that, again, we know it's going to get buffed, it's on the list, but how much it gets buffed by. Glass Cannon, being a meta chest talent, is now basically just going to be even more meta chest talent. And depending on how much they buff normal and then versus perfect, yeah, have fun farming those Glass Cannon chests. The only downside to this so far with the prediction is the weapon handling of Eagle Bearer. I'm aware some people get along with it, but honestly, for me and for what a lot of people have been saying, is Eagle Bearer's handling is absolutely trash. So maybe there will be some caveats to this, where like, okay, technically it's the most powerful, or could be the most powerful, but it's bloody horrible and awkward to use, so I'd rather drop a percent but go for a more usable weapon. But then even in this regard, there are weapons getting a buff that seem absolutely bizarre. Something along the lines of Cetar is looking very, very powerful, which they stated is getting plus 50 RPM, which is going to put the base to 950. Add in Strikers, that's 1092 RPM. So this could also be very, very powerful. It's also more stable and more accurate than FAMAS. And this is also, again, assuming that FAMAS isn't touched, because that is the meta AR at the moment. And judging by how they're going to do things, I'm kind of doubting as to whether they're actually going to touch the current meta weapons or the current meta setups and just try and bring everything else up, which I feel is like a pretty poor way to go in terms of balancing, simply just because meta MMR at the moment, White Death, high end, obviously, it's got one of the lowest accuracy and stability ratings, so if they buff everything else, that is going to be so much more damaging, but now just so much more accurate and stable. It's not so much unbalancing things as it is destroying things. And before a lot of my detractors go, oh, you just can't be arsed farming out the new meta, bloody blah, Walker and Harris is probably my most farmed set. I probably have enough pieces in my chest, my stash, to make 7 different red builds, all using very different pieces. Enough to make at least 2 tank builds, and I can probably make about 9 skill builds. I love Walker and Harris. I think it is probably one of the best sets in the game, but it's just not very powerful at the moment. If they buff it, I'm going to be happy, really happy. I've got Obliterate Walker and Harris, Glass Cannon Walker and Harris, Intimidate Walker and Harris, Adrenaline Rush, Matador, Bloodsucker, Vigilance. I've got all of them. Like, I'm not going to be fussed. Like, even the build I'm running in this video is Walker and Harris. I'm going to be happy. Couldn't care. But you will. So again, this is just a prediction. I don't actually know if this is going to happen. I have no insider information. I'm just trying to connect the dots with what they have shown. That being said, if they do swap to Walker and Harris, I mean, I will be happy because I've got so many Walker and Harris pieces that I can just make use of. However, it will unbalance the game very, very, very unfairly. Glass Cannon, depends what they do with it. I was kind of hoping Obliterate would get a bit of a buff because I feel like Obliterate at this point, at least for me and the meta players, Obliterate is very much being left behind. However, in the meantime, have fun. Good luck. Don't die. It's bad for the health.